Scores of Palestinians injured on holiest night in Muslim month of Ramadan. The Egyptian health minister to inspect a Sinovac vaccine production line. And DRC President Tshisekedi meets the Egyptian president in Cairo. Welcome to Africa Live on CGTN with me, Beatrice Marshall, in Nairobi. Also coming up on the program. In business news, South Africa's GDP to expand 3 to 4% this year after 2020 contraction. And in sports, Nigerian football fans divided over FIFA's plans to start Elite African Super League. The unrest in East Jerusalem continues. The Palestine Red Crescent says at least 80 more Palestinians have been injured in demonstrations and violent clashes with Israeli police. Clashes took place on Saturday night on Laylat al-Qadr, the holiest night of Ramadan. Around 80,000 worshippers had gathered at Al-Aqsa Mosque. Local media say Palestinians threw stones, bottles, fireworks and explosives at police officers, and police dispersed them with stun grenades and water cannons. It followed clashes on Friday night when over 200 Palestinians and 17 Israeli police officers were injured. Stephanie Fried reports from Jerusalem.
Security is heightened and police policy in Jerusalem Saturday night is zero tolerance. Those measures are a response to violent clashes that erupted overnight Friday between Israeli police and Palestinian protesters at Islam's third holiest site, Al-Aqsa Mosque. Hundreds, including police, were injured in the skirmishes. Muslim worshippers inside the mosque compound hurled glass bottles, rocks, and chairs at police. Police stormed the mosque area and fired tear gas, stun grenades, and rubber bullets at demonstrators. On Saturday, international bodies, including the UN, the U.S. State Department, and regional leaders, appealed to both sides for calm. Demonstrations against the mosque storming were held in Arab communities throughout Israel Saturday, and in Hamas-controlled Gaza, leaders threatened to escalate protests along the border fence with Israel in response to the events in Jerusalem. The latest escalation comes on the heels of weeks of violent clashes in Israeli-occupied East Jerusalem between Jewish settlers, Israeli police, and Palestinians over an impending court order to evict Palestinian families from their homes and replace them with Jewish settlers. Tensions have run high in Jerusalem during the past month, the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. According to Muslim tradition, Saturday night, Laylat al-Qadr, is observed by reflection and all-night prayer inside mosques. Stephanie Fried, CGTN, Jerusalem.
The World Health Organization has approved China's Sinopharm COVID vaccine for emergency use. Friday's announcement means the vaccine can now be included in the COVAX facility. Our reporter Feng Yilei talks to Xiao Yiming, the chief expert at the Chinese Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Dr. Xiao is also a member of China's COVID-19 vaccine research and development task force.
I also wonder why for the China vaccine, why it's so slow, and for other countries are much faster. Because the world are really needing the vaccine, like Africa until now is only a few percentage of their, or even many countries less than 1% of their people receive the vaccine. I do hope after the first one and the other vaccine, not only from China, from all other countries, if they met the standard, international standards, they should all be faster.
What role will the Chinese vaccine play in addressing current challenges like virus mutations and virus continued spread in developing countries, as you said?
If you really want to judge a vaccine, especially its impact on the control the pandemic, usually we consider three features. One is efficacy, the second is safety, the third, also very important, is accessibility. The inactivated vaccine, they have I always say it's like a good students, which in study, in physics, in moral, they are all good. It's a complementary, good balance. For some vaccine with high efficacy, but they need like -70 to store, to transport. So the accessibility is not that good. I think for many developing countries, they can choose according to their own epidemic situation.
Will China be able to carry out its promise given that the vaccination rate within the country is still relatively low?
We are not only the China first, but we are the global first. So we provide the vaccine to Chinese people and people in other countries at the same time. And Sinopharm already provided vaccine to about 60 countries in the world. And the production capacity is scaled up. So our production will be more and more. I mean, 5 billion for this year is only like the first stage. So next year, the production is going way up.
Meanwhile, Egypt's Minister of Health, Hala Zayed, is on Sunday expected to inspect production lines for the Sinovac COVID-19 vaccine. State-owned company Vaxera is going to be producing the vaccine in Cairo. And following the visit, Zayed will hold a press conference to announce details on the production and reveal new information regarding the vaccine manufacturing agreement with China. After new mutations of the coronavirus were reported in some countries, Egypt heightened its anti-COVID-19 measures at all its entry points. Those entering the country must undergo a rapid COVID-19 test. According to the Africa CDC, Egypt has recorded over 234,000 cases, over 12,000 deaths, and has over 176,000 recoveries. Well, CGTN's Adel Mahroui is joining us now from Cairo with more on that story. Adel, Egypt's Health Minister Hala Zayed is due to visit production lines designated to manufacture locally produced COVID-19 vaccine under the license from Sinovac. What do we know?
Egypt and Sinovac, Vaxera, Egypt's Vaxera, which is the government arm for vaccination manufacturing, it's the biggest facility in Egypt, has signed, along with China's Sinovac, a cooperation to produce the Sinovac CoronaVac vaccine domestically in Egypt. The purpose of this collaboration is to help in the shortage, in the global shortage, in providing COVID-19 vaccines by increasing the number of production lines available. Egypt and China are both working together to make sure that there is a manufacturing hub in Africa. So one of the main purposes of this cooperation is not only to cover Egypt's domestic demand for the COVID-19 vaccine, but it is also to support as many African countries as possible with this vaccine. What the health minister today is doing is she's inspecting the first phase of launching this, or at least the preparations for it. She is here in Cairo at Vaxera to inspect the production lines. Initially, Egypt and Vaxera and Sinovac are planning to produce 20 million vaccines, and the target is to reach up to 80 million vaccines annually in both the Vaxera factory in downtown Cairo and another one on the outskirts of the Egyptian capital.
And so what is the progress in achieving the required production capacity, and what is the time frame for the first doses of the jab to enter the market?
So, as I told you, the aim is to reach 80 million vaccines annually. This, of course, will not happen instantly. They will begin with the existing infrastructure in the Cairo production facility in downtown Cairo. They will begin the process now. The preparations, as we're seeing by the health minister, will be taking place today, which means that the factory is getting ready to soon begin the production. No specific time or date has been announced. We are expecting actually actually the health minister to announce that date today in her press conference. But earlier announcement from the health ministry, they said that maximum by the end of Q3 this year, the production of the vaccines will see the light, and there will be actual jabs to be distributed in Egypt and Africa.
And what are the expected benefits, Adele, of the Chinese vaccines in battling the pandemic in Egypt, which has been adversely affected by the pandemic?
So far, Beatrice, Egypt has only two kinds of vaccines. It has the AstraZeneca and Sinopharm. Sinopharm was the first to be supported in Egypt. Egypt was part of the clinical 3 trials. So the cooperation with China in terms of the vaccine cooperation in general has been quite phenomenal under the COVID-19 pandemic. So from the very early phases of even producing and testing the vaccine, the two countries have been strongly cooperating with each other. And when the Egyptian contracts from AstraZeneca were delayed, China has quickly moved to support Egypt with additional additional vaccines from the Chinese government to the Egyptian government. So in general, the collaboration is quite strong. When it comes to the reputation of the vaccines among the population of those interested to take the vaccines in Egypt, many prefer the Chinese vaccine as the fears from the rare blood clotting reported for AstraZeneca drives them away from that and makes them prefer more the Sinopharm vaccine and the Chinese alternative for the COVID-19. So that's mainly how the support is going, and the appetite for the Chinese vaccine is quite high, at least from what appears to be quite common on social media and among people who ask frequently whether they can choose and select which vaccine to take at vaccination centers here in Egypt.
All right, Adel Mahroui joining us there from Cairo. Thank you. Well, in India, the total infections of COVID-19 have risen by over 400,000 for the 4th consecutive day. It comes amid strict lockdowns in several states. Abdullah Hashmi has more.
Known as the rich man's disease and a poor man's burden, COVID-19 has choked India's capital in its second wave in more deadlier ways than one. While the capital's urban population struggles to find oxygen, ventilators and medicines to survive, Delhi's slum dwellers face the additional burden of having lost jobs and access to food and ration for their daily sustenance. Most men in Delhi's slums are daily wage laborers working at construction sites or factories that have been shut down due to the pandemic. The women, usually employed as house help by the neighboring urban households, have also been laid off to prevent the spread of the deadly virus.
We used to work as domestic help in big houses, but the owners have asked us not to come to their houses anymore because of Corona. They're doing all their house chores on their own now. They haven't provided us any financial support in lieu of our job loss.
Last week, the Delhi government had claimed it had provided a compensation of Rs 5,000 to each construction worker as temporary relief. This week, it announced free ration for all ration card holders, but the last mile delivery of this ration has always been questionable.
Our children are going hungry. We are struggling to find ration. We don't even have water to drink. We are not able to find stuff we need. All shops are closed.
As the dream of a brighter future in the capital is shattered for these immigrant workers, they look to return to their homes, but even that comes with an unaffordable price tag.
What have they thought of the poor? Even if we want to go back home, we can't, because train tickets are either not available or cost 2,000 rupees in the black market. The government seems to support the rich but kill the poor. In some cruel way, it seems a way to control India's burgeoning population.
As the Delhi government has been cornered by the pandemic from all sides, perhaps it could take a tip or two in COVID-19 management from Asia's biggest slum, Dharavi, which last year not only flattened the curve, but also this year has managed to fight the second wave of COVID-19 with much more efficacy. Abdullah Hashmi, CGTN, Delhi.
Well, India's COVID-19 outbreak has hit the news headlines across the world, with many countries offering a hand of support to the Asian nation. India has been recording hundreds of thousands of new infections and thousands of deaths daily. Some health experts say many countries, including South Africa, should learn from India's situation. CGTN's Lisan Jamela has more.
South Africa's Health Minister Zweli Mkhize has warned of rising COVID-19 infections. Mkhize says provinces have seen a sharp rise in infections in the past 14 days. The Health Minister says 21 districts in 7 provinces have had more than a 20% average increase in COVID-19 cases in the last fortnight. Such an increase has not been recorded since mid-February. According to some researchers and medical experts, there are some lessons that South Africa can learn from the situation in India in order to avoid it.
So India for a while was seeing dropping numbers until maybe a few weeks ago. The situation seems to be a combination of factors, including a new variant in India that's been double mutating, according to the medical experts. It's also been the case that they've been gathering crowds in mega cities. And I think there are some lessons. For example, one of the key causes in the spread of the virus in India has been groups gathering in campaign situations, because in India they have some elections taking place this year, and South Africa itself has elections scheduled for this year. So I think moving forward, we need to adhere to the regulations. We need to limit gathering in crowds and be less skeptical of the vaccine when eventually it is rolled out.
South Africa will be holding the 2021 local government elections in October. Owing to this crisis in India, there have been calls here from many quarters for South Africa to ban travel from that country.
I think we have enough systems in place that are able to detect cases, that are able to regulate travel. I don't think an outright ban is what's needed at this time, but I think what's in place needs to be implemented so that people who come in and out of the country are tested, quarantined according to the World Health Organization regulations. We shouldn't stigmatize one particular country, which speaks to what was being said last year when the virus was still in China. And I think the world is better served if there's more collaboration among countries.
The South African Health Ministry has raised its concerns about the variant that is currently dominant in India. The OR Tambo, King Shaka and Cape Town international airports have now been put on high alert to ensure that travelers entering the country are thoroughly screened and, if needed, tested on the spot. Yodisa Njabela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
The UN Refugee Agency says 45 people have been killed and more than 17,500 people in Burkina Faso have been forcefully displaced from their homes in the past 10 days. Gunmen have been carrying out a series of attacks in 3 separate regions in the West African nation. They have been burning down houses and shooting civilians dead. The assailants also ransacked health centers. Attacks by the armed groups linked to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State have been rising sharply since the start of the year. Burkina Faso's ill-equipped army has struggled to contain the spread of the violence. Elsewhere, gunmen have killed 7 Nigerian police officers in a night attack in the southern oil hub of Rivers State. According to a statement by the police, the attackers opened fire at a checkpoint on Friday evening, then drove on to hit 2 police stations. Officers fired back, killing 2 of the raiders and injuring some of the others who escaped in a stolen car. The killings came amid deteriorating security in Rivers State, whose capital, Port Harcourt, is the gateway to the oil-rich Delta region. You're watching Africa Live. Still ahead on the program. DRC's President Tshisekedi meets Egyptian President El-Sisi in Cairo. And South Africa to ban the breeding of lions in captivity for hunting.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
I've been to Tunis, Cairo, Juba, Ethiopia, Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
The President of the Democratic Republic of Congo and the current head of the African Union, Felix Tshisekedi, has concluded his visit to Sudan and is now in Egypt to hold talks with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. His visit comes amid international and regional efforts to relaunch negotiations over Ethiopia's disputed dam on the Nile River. The African Union brokered negotiations in Kinshasa in April, but failed to make progress on the issue. The Nile Dam dispute now centers on how quickly Ethiopia should fill and replenish the reservoir, as well as how much water it should release downstream in case of a multi-year drought.
We are very thankful for the efforts exerted by Your Excellency in order to find a solution for the issue of the Ethiopian dam, and let me assure you that we in Egypt are eager to support all efforts in order to reach a legal agreement on the issue.
Uganda's parliament is seeking to penalize homosexuality for the second time in 7 years under a new sexual offences bill. Even before the bill gets the president's assent to become law, it's already causing an uproar from activists. Isabel Nakiria reports.
Lawmakers in Uganda were involved in a heated debate before the sexual offences bill was eventually passed. The bill reintroduces homosexuality as an offence, saying it protects the African culture. Offenders face 10 years imprisonment and will have their records entered into a register. Activists argue it promotes hate against the gay community.
It's going to promote a lot of homophobia towards these people, and we know how far homophobia can go in affecting the lives of LGBTI people, in even accessing critical services like health services.
This is the second time Uganda is criminalizing same-sex relationships. Court later threw it out, saying there was no quorum when it was passed. Legislators also struck off a proposal to withdraw consent during a sexual act. The mover of the bill says consent is very critical and removing it will only promote indecency and rape culture.
The law should allow or should guide and say, even where consent has been granted, a partner should be at liberty to withdraw it at any stage. Why? Because there may be circumstances that warrant somebody to say, I want to discontinue this act.
Lawmakers also added men as offenders in prostitution, which was previously missing in the old Penal Code Act. People caught exchanging indecent pictures online face up to 7 years in jail. But campaigners want this clause reviewed.
The non-consensual sharing of, maybe intimate pictures of especially women, because we've only seen women getting prosecuted under this act already, under the this clause under the Pornography Act. So seeing it still come up in the sexual offences bill, where we had hope that some of these things will be removed, and then would use this as a benchmark to go and say we need to review the Anti-Pornography Act, then also derails a lot of work that's been put into protecting women against these kinds of sexual abuses.
Other offences in the bill include sexual harassment, defilement, and indecent assault. The enacted bill comes a few weeks after the police report of 2020 showed a rise in sexual offences. Isabel Nakiria, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
South Africa has revealed plans to end the practice of breeding lions in captivity for trophy hunting. This move follows the release of a long-awaited high-level panel report on this controversial practice. The report found that captive lion breeding does not contribute to conservation and continues to damage South Africa's reputation abroad. CGTN's Elisa Njamela has more.
Over the years, thousands of tourists have descended to South Africa from around the world for an opportunity to shoot lions for trophies. Walking with young lions and or petting them is also one of the very popular tourist activities. It's practices that have always drawn outrage from animal welfare activists. The activists have always complained, saying hunting lions in enclosures is cruel. The report by the high-level panel agrees.
The panel identified that the captive lion industry poses risks to the sustainability of wild lion conservation, resulting from the negative impact on ecotourism, which funds lion conservation and conservation more broadly, the negative impact on the authentic wild hunting industry, and the risk the trade in lion parts poses to stimulating poaching and the illegal trade. The panel recommended that South Africa does not captive breed lions, keep lions in captivity, or use captive lions or their derivatives commercially.
The panel was made up of diverse experts. It was, amongst other things, tasked with studying the management and rules governing the hunting, trade, and keeping in captivity of lions, elephants, rhino, and leopards. Although yet to be formulated as policy, the panel recommendations have been approved for implementation by the department.
Implementation of the recommendations will transform the practices within the wildlife industry, enhance conservation of our environment and these species, invigorate rural economies, and empower traditional practices, leadership, and healers.
The decision is likely going to anger the multi-million-dollar lion captive breeding industry. Minister Chrissy, however, emphasized that the high-level panel is not meant to stifle the hunting industry.
Preventing the hunting of captive lions is in the interests of the authentic wild hunting industry and will boost the hunting economy and our international reputation and the jobs that this creates.
According to the Environmental Affairs Department, between 8,000 and 12,000 lions, along with thousands of tigers, cheetahs, and other big cats are spread across more than an estimated 350 facilities here in South Africa. Yulisandra Willer for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Meanwhile, in Uganda, bird watchers are promoting the conservation of birds during this time of migration. Uganda is a fly path for migratory birds, and bird watchers are concerned about their safety as they fly back to Europe to nest. CGTN's Hilary Ayesiga reports.
Gloria Tim is a bird watcher. She's out in the wild to spot unique bird species.
Today I've been able to see some few rare birds. With the African fish eagle on the top of my list, and then the black crake. And I've also been able to register the black African jacana and a few weavers, and I can still hear the weavers calling, and then the pied kingfishers.
This year's theme is Sing, Fly, Soar like a bird. And because of COVID-19 pandemic, each bird is encouraged to go out alone. But as the team moves deeper into the birds' habitats, she's concerned about their safety.
We see people cutting down trees every day, as which you can look around, which has really hindered the habitats of the birds. This place used to be a party for birds. Birds would come, and at any time of the day you would find very many birds, but right now you just pick out a few species up and down, and then that's the threat that we're having with the human activities.
Some of the most endangered species include the fox's weaver and the shoebill. Uganda has only around 150 shoebills remaining in the wild. Uganda is home to 10% of the birds in the world, and some of these are endangered species. Conservationists are now urging law enforcement agencies to protect their habitats. Conservationists have now embarked on a tree planting campaign to restore the habitats for these birds.
In terms of conservation, I urge Uganda, especially the government, to implement the laws on conservation, especially providing alternative livelihoods to the communities around protected areas in order to protect these habitats.
The birds are not only important for tourism, but also agriculture, and protecting them and their habitats is now a priority for bird watchers like a team. Hilary Ayesiga, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
You're watching Africa Live. Still ahead on the program. South Africa's GDP is set to expand by 3 to 4% this year after 2020 contraction. And Zimbabweans yet to feel the benefits of an expanding economy.
It's just taken me completely out of my depth, but at the same time it's exciting. It's new, it's different, it's a challenge.
It's really exciting.
To Zimbabwe now, where the government recently revised the country's GDP upwards to $24 billion, attributing it to sound financial policies. However, citizens are yet to feel the benefits of an expanding economy, and analysts say the government must commit to implementing its own policies. CGTN's Farai Mwakutuya reports.
A bumper harvest, increased industrial capacity utilization owing to stronger demand for local products under COVID-19 restrictions, falling inflation and a stable currency have been the bedfellows of Zimbabwe's recent economic resurgence.
If you look at some of the crucial indicators in the economy, they seem to be coming right. These indicators have to be watched. There's no doubt about it that there is pressure in the economy, particularly from wage pressures coming through from the civil servants and from ordinary citizens.
Finance Minister Professor Mthuli Ncube says the country is now a $24 billion economy and expects 7.4% growth this year. The numbers, which make good reading on paper, may not translate to the lived reality.
The gap between the rich and poor is actually wider. A lot of people are earning below the poverty datum line, or they're earning amounts which are less, like possibly much less, 80% less than the USD comparatives when we did have the multi-currency. So if it's not flowing to the people, then it's just government that's playing up statistics at the moment.
Some observers say the full impact of the gains will be felt later. To sustain the positive trajectory, authorities have been urged to expedite policies that will increase production in two key sectors of the economy. These are agriculture and mining. One will substitute food imports and the other will generate foreign currency. Government also needs to maintain its fiscal discipline.
Government needs to not borrow, particularly from the unsupervised central bank overdraft. Government needs to also get its debts under control and make sure, to coin a well-used frame, live within its means.
The Southern African nation is anticipating a rebound from the COVID-19 crisis as it rolls out an accelerated mass vaccination program. Farai Mwakutuya, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
South Africa's economy is set to recover by between 3 and 4% this year. This is after the COVID-induced contraction in 2020. The country's vaccine rollout has, however, been marred by setbacks threatening the progress to kickstart the economy after last year's slump. News of the resumption of the COVID-19 vaccination program has also helped. CGTN's Angelo Coppola has more.
The country's main stock market, the JSE, has been resilient throughout the pandemic lockdowns, but it's not a proxy for the country's economy.
The JSE, we're now in May, it's just come off of 6 months of gains. So for each month preceding, it's been green. April was only up 0.7%, so you can see the momentum we had last year is slowing down now. But that, as you say, it's not a proxy for South Africa. Mining shares, agricultural shares, more international focused companies have been doing a lot of the heavy lifting.
But some local sectors are getting organized. The South African tourism sector, one of the key job creators and contributors to the country's economy, has developed a sector recovery plan.
I think this is a good start. The fact that we have a plan that's approved by Cabinet, it shows that there is intent, from government side, to do more than what has been done in the past. So this is a good start. And I must say that we participated in the formulation of this plan. And I do think that the fact that it's approved, it means that the resources can now be directed into the recovery of the sector.
However, listed hospitality and tourism companies are still languishing.
First one that comes to mind is something like Bidcorp, the food company. They supply a lot of the restaurants, hotels. They've been very, very range bound. They actually had to write down hundreds of millions of rands worth of stock when lockdown happened because food doesn't last forever. So that's still been fairly range bound, but you would expect it as tourism picks up, their numbers will pick up, restaurants will pick up, and their share price should pick up.
International tourism remains almost non-existent. The United States has effectively banned its nationals from visiting South Africa, but the tourism sector believes it can entice visitors to the country because its frontline workers are about to be vaccinated.
Now, the most important thing is that we want the touch points of tourism to be vaccinated so that we can then open up to the world. Those countries like the USA and many other UK that are saying that people should not come to South Africa, we can then say to them, our touch points are vaccinated. In fact, even now as I speak, our numbers are so low that I don't even understand why there's a restriction on people traveling to South Africa.
While tourism is important to South Africa, the economy is made up of several sectors that contribute to the country's GDP.
Our banks have found a lot lower write-downs than they were expecting, so there is, what they call it, green shoots. There is a silver lining to all of this.
While the Johannesburg Stock Exchange isn't a proxy for what happens in the South African economy, it's a good sign that there's some confidence returning. I'm Angelo Coppola for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Ghana's tech space is set to see a boost as Twitter moves to set up its first Africa office in the country. The social media company joins Facebook and other tech companies that have already set up shop in Africa. Technology enthusiasts say the move could help Ghana establish a hub for tech startups. CGTN's Nabil Ahmed Rufai reports from Accra.
Kwabena Nkrumah has been connecting with people, especially technology savvies, on the social media app Twitter for more than a decade. He is among several Ghanaians excited about the company's decision to set up its first Africa office in Ghana. He believes it will drive a change in the technology space in the country.
Our skills are intangible, so it's very difficult for business to say, hey, a developer deserves this amount of credit or this amount of remuneration, because clearly they don't know how much it's worth. So for a company like this to come, it's going to raise the value of our developers, of our techies, and then thereby causing a shift.
Twitter says it settled on Ghana because of its support for free speech and democracy. It plans to employ 11 Ghanaians for positions including engineering, marketing, and communications specialists.
But the choice of Ghana as Twitter's Africa headquarters hasn't been without controversy. Twitter fans in Nigeria see it as a snub to the continent's largest economy, which is also experiencing growth in its tech space since Facebook set up its first community hub in Africa in Nigeria in 2018. They wondered why their country was not selected because it has more than 36 million Twitter subscribers, which exceeds the entire population of Ghana.
Analysts say Ghana had the upper hand because it's easier to do business in the country than Nigeria. In 2019, Ghana surpassed Nigeria in the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business Index, ranking 13 places higher. Nkrumah says the presence of Twitter in Ghana could unearth many brilliant minds in the technology space.
It may draw the attention to some local developers' products that is good, but nobody is seeing. Maybe someone has created something that Twitter could put into Twitter and it could be very, very famous, but nobody's seen. But Twitter being here, that person could be seen, and then that person's product grows, that person starts to make millions, that person creates the next big company, starts recruiting people, and then growing the Silicon Valley of Ghana, which we've been praying for years and years and years.
Twitter says it will be working remotely as it works towards opening a physical office in the country. In the meantime, Kwabena Nkrumah hopes this opportunity will help to transfer skills to many developers in Ghana and the entire African continent. Nabil Ahmed Rufai, CGTN, Accra, Ghana.
Egypt's economy lost $23.6 billion in 2020 due to the outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic. Authorities say the most affected sectors include civil aviation, tourism and construction. From Cairo, here's Yasser Hakim examining the measures the government has taken to handle the economic shocks from the pandemic fallout.
Like in most countries around the world, the COVID-19 outbreak has taken its toll on Egypt's state budget. The government in the North African state had to roll out over $8 billion in emergency funds, as well as develop the healthcare services to deal with the high number of coronavirus cases throughout 2020. While expenditure mushroomed, foreign direct investments dropped significantly, as well as other sources of hard currency, which also plummeted.
The tourism, aviation and construction sectors were negatively affected by the pandemic. The government provided support to these sectors. A $6.5 billion stimulus package was pumped into the economy. 1/5 of it was allocated to the tourism and aviation industry, and another portion to the health sector. The transportation sector also received a considerable amount to upgrade services and infrastructure. These initiatives have helped, but there were still huge losses, and it's obvious it forced the state budget review.
A strong IMF-backed economic reform program that started in 2016 had softened the effects of the $24 billion budget loss. It has helped Egypt to be one of a few countries to post positive growth rates amidst the pandemic. According to Egyptian Minister of Finance Mohammed Maid, the government is eyeing an ambitious 5 to 6% growth rates in the next couple of years, up from the current 2.8%.
Supporting the IT and telecom sector financially has helped it flourish and become an important element in the targeted economic growth rate. The resumption of construction of national mega projects by the state after the lockdown are keeping the economy operating and growth levels up. Another important element is the support to the construction industry because the state interference has avoided a bubble burst in the market as real estate developers and the system were chaotic. We'll also see growing foreign direct investments in energy. Latest discoveries in natural gas is enabling it to attract the most investments.
The government also hopes the crucial but hard-hit tourism industry can recover by the second half of the year, as it would be a major boost to the targeted growth rates and foreign reserves. Yas Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
And we still have more news for you here on the program. Here's what's ahead. We look at how one Nigerian woman recycles trash into fashionable items.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Qanater, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Authorities in many Nigerian cities still face a major challenge in the handling and disposal of solid waste. The country, which has a population of over 200 million people, generates an average of 42 million tons of waste annually, which poses environmental and health hazards. But one woman is fighting to reduce waste production by converting trash into treasure. CGTN's Kelechi Emekalam tells us how.
28-year-old Rita Idehai inspecting beautifully woven bags at her recycling hub in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Passionate about environmental care, the geoscientist turned social entrepreneur established her recycling hub called EcoBarter in 2018. She collects mainly non-biodegradable materials such as plastics and paper and creates fashion pieces from that waste.
And the work we do has now moved from just recycling collection, collecting from households, to more of a lifestyle thing. And so right now, before you even generate waste, we have a platform where you can shop eco-friendly products. When you eventually generate waste, we make fabric from them using, local techniques.
Not only is Rita helping stop environmental degradation by doing this, she's also empowering vulnerable women in the process. She has trained and employed women from camps for the internally displaced. From a life where they depended on aid for survival, these workers now earn as much as $50 in 3 days.
I've been benefiting from the work because I now have money to cater for my needs.
I'm here to train. Though I was once a student, I'm really happy and I really thank God that the first 20 women I trained, they are really doing well. Since last year, I've not been buying school bags. I weave the school bag myself and I sew it. And even the children know how to do it. Children in my area too, I weave the bag and give those that cannot even afford school bags.
The ResearchGate report on waste generation shows that Nigeria generates more than 42 million tons of solid wastes annually. This is more than half of the 62 million tons of waste that's generated in sub-Saharan Africa. Only 20% of that is easily recyclable. Environmentalists say waste collection and recycling is a promising revenue generation option that Nigeria can explore. Kelechi Emekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
Let's now take a look at your sports news. Here's what's coming up. Nigerian football fans divided over FIFA's plans to start elite African Super League.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find